After I caught my best friend cheating with my boyfriend of 3 years, she tried to unalive herself. But then she realized I didn't care and tried to turn my own mom against me. I shocked myself with what I did next. My best friend attempted to take her life and I didn't care. She deserves it. I haven't and won't even reach out. We've been best friends since kindergarten. She was my sister. We stood by each other through everything. When my parents divorced, she was there to offer a shoulder for me to cry on. When her grandmother died, I was there, keeping her afloat throughout high school. Naturally, she was the first person I introduced my boyfriend to. She didn't like him at first, though I didn't know why. When I asked, she just ummed and awed before changing the topic. I thought it was because he was a gamer guy and a little awkward, so she thought I could do better. But he was really sweet to me. He treated me to date nights and always made me feel special. Maybe this was just me being young and dumb, but I thought I'd marry the guy someday. This was something I told my best friend, but one time I did, she just made this guilty and almost disgusted face at me. Fast forward 3 years and me and him are still together. I was at his place when I saw a text notification on his phone while he was showering. We never cared much about phone privacy, so I grabbed his phone to look at them. Well, it was from my best friend asking if they were still on for tonight and if she should wear his favorite dress. My heart stopped. He told me he was hanging out with friends and going drinking tonight. In hindsight, I always wonder how much of him going out with friends was actually going out with her. I saved screenshots of their conversations and of course sent them to myself. When he left the bathroom, I couldn't hide the tears streaming down my cheeks. An argument ensued where I told him he was disgusting. He tried to gaslight me, telling me it was my fault for not looking after my looks, and if I didn't stick my nose in his business, I wouldn't be crying right now. I left his place when he told me that. I was heartbroken, and shortly after arriving home, I started getting bombarded with calls and texts from my best friend. To this day, I have no idea what she wanted because I answered none of them. However, I did look at her texts, and everything she said can basically be boiled down to, she never meant to hurt me, he hit on her first, it was an accident, it didn't mean anything, and I still owed her $10 for Chipotle. I remember not answering a single text, and after perhaps 15 or 20 messages, she became angry. She began spamming me, calling me dumb, immature, and naive, saying this wasn't how friends treat each other and telling me I was being selfish for throwing away our friendship. She eventually stopped after a total of 78 calls and 132 messages. My boyfriend was strangely quiet during this time, though. He didn't reach out once. It took me a few days, but I finally got my shit together. Well, not really, but enough to send them both messages. I texted my now ex-boyfriend that we were done and I wouldn't give him a second chance. He responded by trying to call me, but after just one attempt, he gave up. He sent me a final message saying it wasn't that big of a deal because he couldn't help his testosterone being higher than the average male, and finally ended up agreeing that we shouldn't date anymore. My ex-best friend was more persistent after I told her I wanted nothing to do with her. Day after day, I'd get messages and calls from her demanding to talk, demanding I don't say anything to anyone and expose her perfect reputation. I remember in one of the messages, she screeched that she would take her own life if I didn't talk to her. She said she was going to write a note blaming me, saying her death was my fault and that everyone would hate me for the rest of my life. It's really up. And I know to you guys, it might seem obvious that she was crazy and I had every right to be mad. But when you're actually in a situation this heartbreaking, it's almost impossible to see clearly. So I ended up confiding in a mutual friend to see if I was being a bee. But it turns out this friend didn't care about me either because not only did she give me one-word replies the entire time, but she also ended up spreading the word about what happened. The gossip spread like wildfire, and obviously my ex-best friend quickly found out I told someone I knew because one day I heard she posted a photo of herself crying on her Snapchat story. Honestly, I figured it was just for attention. Little did I know the truth was much darker than I thought. I remember I was about to go shower when I got the news. She tried to take her own life. She took her dad's shotgun and aimed it at her head. Fortunately, it wasn't loaded, and she couldn't figure out how to load it, so instead she tried to OD. It was heartbreaking. My face went ghost white. I couldn't even catch my breath. I just sat there hugging a pillow and rocking back and forth. But the thing is, I didn't visit her in the hospital. I didn't send any messages to her family. And so her older sister began messaging me, telling me I'm a heartless bee for leaving her at her lowest. I didn't respond to her either. So she took a different approach. She messaged my mom, and that was a can of worms I did not want to open. My mom was a notorious cheater in her own day, and I just knew that she would try to go to whatever lengths needed to justify what my best friend did and get me to forgive her. Update 1 month later. Okay, from now on, I am giving fake names. The XBF is Nikki, her older sister is Tammy, XBF is Josh. I'll name anyone relevant as I go. So, as you know, Tammy messaged my mom, and as I expected, that led to my mom trying to pressure me into forgiving Nikki. She came over to my dad's that evening and wanted a private conversation. She asked if I'd spoken to Nikki yet. I said no. I was trying to be as firm as possible because I knew what she was about to do. This is where things started going south. My mom told me to stop holding a silly grudge and that I need to be there for her. To understand what I said next, you have to know that I was sick of everyone taking her side. So when she asked me, why can't you forgive her? I responded with, what, like how dad should have forgiven you? For context, my parents divorced due to infidelity on my mom's end, and it was far from just a one-time thing because my mom always believed dad should just forgive her. After 10 minutes of arguing, I decided the conversation was over because we were heading into yelling territory, so I told her to leave. She was just about to head out the door, but then she turned around with her fist clenched. She was so angry that I could see the vein bulge on her forehead. "Mom, what are you doing?" Well, she unclenched her fist, but still looking angry as ever, said, "I hope you're not as cruel as your father." I'm typically not angry, but this infuriated and hurt me. I lived 50-50 between my parents. They both made sure I had everything I could need or want, but she felt her situation and struggles were undeserved. Dad never helped with bills or payments that didn't involve me. She expected more, cheaters always do. I didn't say anything when she left. I blocked her number and social media accounts and cried. She cared more about the girl who had hurt her daughter than said daughter. She quickly realized what had happened and returned the next day. But Dad told her I didn't want to talk to her, true, and that she had to leave. It took maybe half an hour before she finally left. She tried to reach me the next few days through other people, but I stayed silent. The Friday after my post, I decided I felt calm enough to talk to her and unblocked her. We spoke over the phone, which wasn't as exciting as above. It was her apologizing and telling me she was wrong for trying to force me to forgive Nikki, that she'd respect my decision, but tried to suggest I think about it. I very firmly told her I was not forgiving Nikki. She just said, okay. Things didn't feel the same with us. I couldn't bring myself to be as chatty with her as before, and it didn't help that she kept giving me updates about Nikki. The first time she did it, she told me Nikki had been put on a 72-hour site hold, assessed, and eventually released. I told her I didn't want any updates on Nikki's situation. I wouldn't stop her from checking in, but I didn't want to be involved. She complained and said she thought I'd want to visit her, but I threatened to block her again if she kept pushing and shut up. Nothing was mentioned about Nikki for a couple weeks before Mom again broke my boundary and brought her up, telling me about how Josh had stopped talking to her and how Nikki needed a shoulder to cry on. I again told her I didn't want to know, and this was her last chance not to bring her up, or I would cut her from my life. She complained again, but eventually promised it wouldn't happen again. Maybe I should have learned from my mistakes, because I know my mother, she doesn't take no for an answer. It was quiet for a while. My friends and I had all carried on from what happened, and even though I know a couple of them still occasionally talk to Nikki, they never bring her up around me or tell her how I'm doing. I thought I could finally close this chapter on my life, but nope. Today, my mother called me and asked if I wanted to get lunch. I hadn't seen her in a while, so what was the harm? I headed to the Weatherspoons we planned to eat at, and who do I find sitting with my mom, Nikki, and her sister Tammy? As soon as Nikki sees me, she gets up and tries to hug me, but I just raise a hand and take a step back. And this girl dares to look upset. Mom immediately knows she's fucked up because she's scrambling with all of the excuses. It hurts to see you two fall apart like this. You were so close. I thought you'd forgive her by now. My favorite, she made a mistake. She misses you. Nikki has been quiet, and I can see Tammy glaring at me. I'm just so angry and upset. I honestly didn't think she'd pull something like this. I wanted to leave and cry, but I looked at Nikki and said, for someone who's made a mistake, she sure hasn't apologized for it yet. She had this guilty look and muttered something about me having her blocked and having no way to contact her. I said, is that all you have to say? She just looked at me confused. I was done. I turned to leave, and her sister started yelling after me, saying that I owed Nikki a second chance with all the trauma I put her through. While Nikki was begging me to listen to and talk to her, I told them all to fuck off and never contact me again. Then I left. I got out of there before Tammy started a fight and went home. I texted my mom a while ago telling her she'd better lose my number because she no longer has a spot in my life. Then I blocked her and just cried. My dad's been doing his best to comfort me, but it just hurts so bad that my mother did this to me, so that's where things are at right now. Update 3. This Christmas has been amazing. I spent it with my family and with my dad. I went out on Boxing Day night with my friends to party hard and regret it harder the following day. I'm in a much better place than in December 2023. As of January 2024, I have been in no contact with my mother. Unfortunately, I've not seen her since then, and I've done my best to avoid talking to her on the 3 occasions I've had to be in the same place as her. Not out of choice, mind you, but it is what it is. During Christmas 2023, she had expected that I would spend it with her and her side of the family. Given the events at that time, this was not happening, and my dad told her as much. She lost her mind. She refused to take no for an answer leading up to Christmas, to the point Dad and I left for my paternal aunt's house on Christmas Eve to spend the night there. According to a neighbor, my birth giver showed up pretty early in the morning to catch us leaving, but was irate to learn we already weren't there. Thankfully, my aunt had moved house quite recently, so my mother didn't know the new address. But we came home to parcels destroyed on our porch the following Boxing Day. There was even a Christmas card labeled to me, but inside was a horrible letter from my mother describing me as the worst daughter on the planet. That honestly destroyed me, and I spent New Year's a mess. It's difficult cutting off your own mother. I spent half of January 2024 trying to fix things with her, but it came to a head when I realized I was the only one forced to compromise. I finally cut off contact, and it's been that way since. In terms of Nikki, I've heard she's doing better. We've not spoken since my mother's lunch escapade, but she's found a job and, according to a mutual friend, found a new circle. Despite everything she's put me through, I'm happy for her.